Good day, everyone. Today we are going to talk about something called fixed income instruments. Before we get started with what are fixed income instruments and what the most common type of fixed income instrument called the savings bank account is, let's get into an understanding of what type of instruments or what type of financial instruments are preferred by what category of people. The basic idea is that you need to invest your money based on your risk profile. I have created a very simplified representation of how your risk profile may look like. It's more complicated than this, but just for general understanding, this should be good enough. Your risk can be divided into three different categories. You could be risk averse, you could be cautious, or you could be a risk taker. So these are the three possible scenarios in which you could find yourself in. Let's start with the first category of risk averse type people. This type of people do not want their money to be invested in things which are risky, which means that you do not want to be involved in any market speculations. You do not want to invest your money in things which may lead to losses. For those kind of people, fixed income securities are the best. Fixed income securities consists of things like fixed deposits, recurring deposits, monthly income schemes, etc., which give you lower returns, but your investment is guaranteed. You will also know exactly how much money you are going to make in a certain amount of time because the interest rates are known to you at the time of investment itself and they do not typically change during the tenure of the investment. This is usually preferred by people who are uh, post retirement, where they do not have any new source of continuous income, but they may have got some money at the time of retirement, which they want to invest in avenues which will give them guaranteed returns. May not be very large amount of returns, but guaranteed returns for a very long period of time. The second category of people are cautious investors. This category of people are typically in their middle age or the group where you have a young family, you have multiple people to look after. So for those kind of people, you have much more different set of expenses which have come in. You may have home loans, you may have the study expenses of your child, you may have other expenses of your family which you will have to look after. In that case, you cannot invest all your money in speculative investments like stock market, etc. So you need a cautious balance of investing in funds which will give you guaranteed returns at the same time because you want to make a good amount of money for maybe your child's future education or maybe to buy a house in the future. You may have to invest in a little bit high risk high return type instruments. So for those kind of people, a cautious mix of fixed income securities and stocks or derivatives, either in the form of direct investments or in the form of mutual investments, is preferable. The third category of people that we talk about is the risk taking type of people. These type of people are typically youngsters who have just moved into the job market. They are earning money, but they do not have a lot of commitments right now. They do not have a large number of loans. They do not have a family yet to look after. So they have a lot of disposable income in their hand. For those kind of people, it is very useful to invest in stocks or derivatives because they can take the risk of losing a little bit of money. But if investment in stocks and derivatives or in mutual funds pays off, they stand to make a significant amount of money so that when they have commitments like family and home and children, they will be able to provide for them a lot better. Let's start with fixed income instruments. The advantages of fixed income instruments are that they are extremely low risk investments. The reason why it is called low risk investments is because most of these fixed income instruments are either directly guaranteed by the government of India, or they are protected by various laws that have been enacted by government of India to minimize the amount of risks to your investment. The second major advantage is that some of the fixed income instruments that we are going to look at in the future videos typically tend to pay out periodic interests. This is very useful for people who are looking at getting a fixed or regular income, and for them, this is a very good and safe source of generating money. The third advantage that exists with most of the fixed income instruments is the predictability of the returns. Most of the fixed income instruments state at the outset itself how much percentage interest they are offering, and that does not change by a large amount till the time you are invested in that particular instrument. So it is very reasonable to assume that it will remain more or less constant, and hence an investor can predict what will be the money that he will be getting at the end of the term or as periodic interest payouts. However, it does have some disadvantages. The major disadvantages are that the returns are limited, in the sense that these things, these financial instruments, which are fixed income instruments, tend to trade safety for returns. These instruments are safe, but at the same time, they do not give very high returns. So, if you want to invest in instruments which are very safe, you can say goodbye to very high returns. But if you want to invest in things which are possible to be capable of generating very high returns, you can assume that they will not be very safe. So that is why we have taken the example of stocks or mutual funds. They can offer much higher returns, but there is much higher risk involved as well. The second disadvantage with most of the fixed income instruments is that the liquidity is very poor. Typically, most of the fixed income instruments require you to keep the money locked in for a period of time. It could be 1 year, it could be 2 years, it could be 5 years, etc. And because of that, you do not have that much liquidity. So you can invest only the amount of money that you do not need in the foreseeable future for these kind of uh, instruments. These are some of the fixed income instruments available in India as on July 2020. Some of the major features of these instruments include interest rate which vary from 2.7 to 7.15, which is considerably less than returns offered by things like mutual funds or the top performing stocks. However, they guarantee your investment, and because of that, they are very popular with investors who do not want to take a lot of risk. We will be going through all of these fixed income instruments one by one. However, this is not the complete list. There are other things like senior citizen savings scheme and Sukanya Samriddhi type of schemes, which we have not listed out here, mainly because of the reason that this is targeted towards people who are just starting out on their family. So, senior citizens saving schemes and Sukanya Samriddhi type schemes are not relevant for them at this point of time. But as time progresses, maybe we will have a couple of videos on those as well. Let's first start with the savings bank account. This is the first and the most common type of a fixed income instrument that anyone will come across. The first question that arises when we talk about savings bank account is, what is it? The answer to that is that it is simply a bank account where you can deposit and withdraw money as and when you like. However, the advantage is that you get a little bit of income as a result of that as well. However, the interest rates are very low. It's mainly for putting the money in the account so that you can use it for several purposes as and when needed. Interest earning is not the key purpose of typically opening these type of accounts. The typical features of a savings bank account include the fact that you can open a savings bank account at any bank. You can even open savings bank account in a post office. All you have to do is go there and give your identification proof, maybe your PAN number as well, and then with very minimal fuss, you will be able to open a savings bank account in any bank. The maintenance process is also very easy, and you can access this account very easily as well. The major features that are associated with this typical savings bank accounts is that the banks usually bundle this account with checkbook feature. They also give you access to net banking facilities, and the debit card or ATM card facilities are also bundled together with the savings bank account. So it makes your life a lot more easier if you are starting out by getting a new job, your first job maybe, and you want to open a salary account. It will eventually be a form of savings bank account, and you will be able to access all these facilities, and you will be able to make financial transactions on your own in the comfort of your home if you are interested in using only net banking and debit card facilities. If you want to do any physical transactions, you can also have access to checkbook, and you can use your debit card in the ATM card facilities as well. The major feature that we have not mentioned so far is that it is very safe as well. The government of India has decided that deposits up to 5 lakh rupees in any bank will be insured, which means that if the bank goes bankrupt or it collapses due to some reason, amount up to 5 lakh rupees will be insured, and you will be getting that amount of money back. So any deposit up to 5 lakh rupees that you make in a savings account is going to be completely safe. Till some time back, the limit that government had put was 1 lakh. Now it is being increased to 5 lakh rupees. So any investment of up to 5 lakh rupees lying in your savings account is completely safe because government of India guarantees it. There are a few things to note when we talk about the savings bank account. Some of them are that the interest earned on the savings bank account deposit is taxable. The amount up to 10,000, that is, if your interest earned on your deposits is less than 10,000, then you can have a tax exemption under Section 80 TTA. But if your tax is more than that, that remaining amount will be taxable. And some banks also prescribe that you have a minimum balance. Typically, it is the average monthly balance should be about 5,000 or 1,000 rupees or something like that. They will specify that amount in the account opening form itself. So, if your monthly or the minimum balance goes below the set limit, you may have to pay a small additional penalty. The third major thing that you should be aware of is that these debit cards, ATM cards, and net banking facility is not free of cost. Companies typically tend to charge a small fee when you are using it. So it is usually done at either quarterly or half yearly basis, but you will have to pay a very small amount of money for availing those facilities. This is one example I wanted to talk about. This is the news that has come in Economic Times on March 13, 2020. The largest bank in India, State Bank of India, has waived off the average monthly balance for all the savings bank accounts. So, this is a major news item because of the fact that most of the banks charge some minimum balance fine if you do not meet those minimum balance requirements. So this action by State Bank of India has set the ball rolling, where you may not in the near future have to pay penalty for not maintaining the monthly balance requirements. Till this news came, the balance requirements in SBI used to be 3,000 in metro cities, 2,000 in semi-urban, and 1,000 in rural areas. And the penalty used to be a very small amount, 5 to 15 rupees plus taxes. But still, it's a penalty that you need not have to pay for putting your own money into a bank. So this tax has been waived off by SBI, and SBI has also waived off the SMS charges levied on a quarterly basis. This is what I was talking about when I talked about the facilities related to net banking and online transactions. Net banking, I think, is still chargeable, and so is the usage of ATM cards. So there are certain good things happening in the banking sector in relation to maintaining the balance requirements, and things may become more competitive in the near future, and customers may get a lot more advantages as a result of that as well. Now let's look at an example on how to calculate the savings bank account interest. If you have opened a bank account with a particular bank and you are adding money to it and withdrawing from it, so this represents kind of the realistic scenario on how a bank account statement will look like for you, and we will try to find out how much interest you are earning on the money that is existing in the bank account. So the assumption is that we have an account with XYZ bank, and we have deposited about 10,000 rupees on June 30, 2020. The bank account interest rate is 2.7% per annum, that is per year, and we are going to calculate the interest earned from July 1 to July 5. So in these days, how much interest we are going to earn, that we can calculate and we can say how much that will be. So let's have a look at that. So on July 1, 2020, the opening balance is 10,000 rupees, because we have started the account with an initial deposit of 10,000 on June 30. So at the morning of July 1, 2020, the balance is 10,000 rupees. On the same day, I withdraw 2,000 rupees. So at the end of the day, the outstanding amount in my account is 8,000 rupees. So now the interest on savings bank account is calculated on a daily basis, which means that every day at the close of the transaction day, you will have the interest being calculated. Okay, so 1 by 1 360 1 by 365 is the 1 day out of one complete year. The interest rate is 2.7 by 100 because it is 2.7%, and the amount outstanding on the close of accounts is 8,000. So total amount that you get for the outstanding amount on July 1 is 0.59 rupees, that is 59 paise. The outstanding amount of 8,000 forms the opening balance on July 2, because I have not done anything in between that time. And on that day, I add 1,000 rupees more to my account. So at the end of the day, I have total 9,000 rupees in my account. The interest earned on July 2 then will be simply same values multiplied by 9,000. So I get 0.67 rupees. The outstanding on the second day, that is July 2nd, forms the opening balance on July 3. And on that day, I do not have anything happening. I don't do any deposits or I don't do any withdrawals. So the outstanding at the end of the day is also 9,000 rupees. So on that day also, if you look at the calculations, I get 0.67 rupee as the interest accrued. On July 4, the outstanding of July 3 becomes the opening balance. I deposit 5,000 rupees and I take out 8,000 rupees. So the net outstanding that I have in my account is 6,000 rupees. So the total amount that I will earn as interest on July 4 alone is 44 paise. The outstanding on July 4 is 6,000, which forms the opening balance on July 5. I have no transaction happening that day, so the outstanding on that day is again 6,000 rupees only. So the interest earned on that day is again 0.44 rupees. So the total interest that I will earn from July 1 to July 5 is simply the summation of all these five interests, which is about 2.81 rupees. This is how we calculate the savings bank account interest when we are dealing with a simple savings bank account. And typically, this interest, though calculated on a daily basis, gets credited to you on a quarterly basis, and in some very rare cases on a half yearly basis. But most likely, you will find them being credited to your account on quarterly basis. Now, I would like to talk to you about a very important variant of the savings account, which is called the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. This was launched on August 20th, 2014 for a duration of 4 years. It was supposed to come to an end in 2018, and the aim was to help open one account per family. This was an initiative by Government of India to ensure that banking reaches every single person. In around 2014, a very large majority of Indians still did not have bank accounts. So the aim of the government was to insist and to encourage people to open bank accounts, so that the people have more financial discipline, and also that the transactions could be directly done on a government to beneficiary basis rather than routing through multiple channels. The government of India extended the Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana program beyond 2018, which was initially envisaged, with the focus on opening accounts for every adult. Initially, the plan was to have one account per family, but now we are looking at total banking where every single adult will have one bank account, so that the financial transactions become a lot more smoother and cash transactions can be minimized. This is a very major step towards financial inclusion in India, mainly because government moved towards direct benefit transfer through this mode. The amount that the government was transferring to the people earlier would suffer massive leakages, and because of corruption it would not reach the desired beneficiaries. So the government tried to do away with the middlemen by using something called the direct benefit transfer, where the benefits or the amount of money which the government wanted was directly credited into the account of the beneficiary, bypassing all the middlemen. So in this case, it helped plug in a lot of leakages which were happening during the benefit transfer. Another major advantage was that in 2014 all the way to 2017, India accounted for 55% of all the bank accounts that opened in the world. Okay, across the world, the biggest bank account opening spree happened in India. This was a major step towards financial inclusion of all kinds of people in India. You can find more details about this in the website pmjdy.gov.in, and you will find what are the current status and what the plans for the future are regarding this. So the massive impact of uh, Prime Minister Jan Dhan Yojana can be found in this single screenshot that I have got from the uh, Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana website. You can have a look at how many total number of beneficiaries got added up because of this single scheme. 39.82 crore new accounts have been opened due to this scheme. So this scheme also gives you the freedom to open zero balance accounts. That means you do not have to have any minimum balance. Nobody will be charging you penalty for minimum balance violations. You also get something called the RuPay card. It's a debit card which is completely developed indigenously, and this also has gone a big way into initiating cashless transactions. So this is a major impact of Pradhan Mantri Jan Dhan Yojana. Direct cash transfer and direct benefit transfer became a reality, and it plugged a lot of leakages also. So that is all for this video. We will go into more details on other fixed income instruments in the next few videos. Please keep watching. Thank you.